Right, so in this video, I'm going to take you through how to upgrade, or whatever you like to call it, from our standard water through to a PIDI reflective water. So quick back history, if you've got to this stage, you've probably been using OPCD meshes. And yeah, you'll have a water plane set up with the OPCD water plane material on it. Which is like a translucent, sort of nice looking sort of normal water. But what you might like to do, if you're not happy with that, is to move to a sort of planar reflective water. And the asset I've been using for that is one called PIDI Planar Reflections, which I'll now load through from the asset store. So this is the one I've been using. It's the PIDI Planar Reflections 3, the standard edition. So it is a paid asset, so you will have to pay for it if you want to use it. Once you've got it, you can then use, as I'll show you in a moment, I've made up a package which sort of makes things a bit easier for you. But yeah, the actual asset itself is a paid asset and you will have to purchase it yourself. It's yours forever, it's not on a per course thing. So once you own it, you can use it for all the courses you'd make. It comes with various shaders and stuff. So I'll just import that into the scene. So that's all important. You see we've now got the PIDI Game Development Framework playing our Reflections 3 in our project. On top of that, you could now use these shaders and stuff and manually all do it yourself if you'd like. But I've provided, or will provide, a package which is a performance scripts, I'm calling it, which has got some prefabs in it which will make this process easier. So I'll just go to where that will be loaded up. So you'll get the PIDI custom scripts package. And you'll see it'll go into the folder. It's got some custom scripts which to help performance and some 3 different types of prefab, which is a single renderer, an own renderer, and a single reflection renderer on its own. And then I'll go through in this video all the different options. So we'll just import that. So that's in. So what we'll do first of all is we will use this lake here, and what we're going to make is an own renderer lake. So quick brief overview. How PIDI works is it's got 2 main components: a reflection renderer, which is essentially a camera that it's sort of a version of your scene's main camera, but it films almost upwards, if you imagine, from the lake and takes like another set of images, which then forms a reflection of your scene. So it's effectively drawing the scene twice, which is why reflective water is quite an expensive performance-wise sort of tool. The other drawback of this is because it's based on the reflection from the height of this plane looking up, so you'll get all these things to reflect. If you happen to be on another lake, which is at a different height, you won't get everything in the reflection. Now, these 2 lakes here are quite similar in height, so you'd probably get away with having one renderer cover all of that. You can see we've got a lake down here that is completely different height. So you imagine if you had a camera at this height looking around to get all the things to reflect, if you put that over here on this lake, it would miss all these things to reflect down here. And equally, if you had one at this height, you couldn't put it on this lake because it'd be underground and you wouldn't see anything. So in order to do that, you'd have to have a different renderer doing these 2 lakes probably, and a different one on this lake down here. Now, as I explained before, every time you have a render in the scene, it redraws the scene again. So you've had one there and another one there, and before you know it, the try count of your scene is through the roof and it just becomes a bogged down, unplayable mess. And that has been the limitation of reflective water. So what we can do is we can share renderers. So you can see this is a single renderer prefab. So that would be one renderer covering multiple lakes. Or you can have an own renderer prefab where each lake would have its own renderer. Or you can have a single reflection renderer, which is basically the render would cover the whole scene and then you just put casters on every lake. You can only do that if all your water planes are all at the same height. So basically if your water plane's on a different height or a massively different height in Y, it has to have a renderer to cover just that height. So what we'll do to start with is we'll do an own renderer lake just on this one so you can see how it works. So first things first, we're no longer using this water, so you can turn that off. That's now gone. And then I will drag in the PIDI water prefab own renderer. Drag it into the scene, drag it to where you want it to be. It'll go somewhere there. You can tweak the Y height. Somewhere there. Move that about a bit. I need to scale that, obviously. Scale it that way a touch. I need to rotate it. Something like that. Oh, back a little bit. There we go. And there you go. So you've now got, you'll see, a reflective surface. Is it quite, I could do that being a touch wider, maybe if I go back a bit. There we go. And you'll see now, rather than the blue ripples, we're now reflecting the sky, we're reflecting this piece of rock. You can go in there and you can see, you can adjust the material, which is the this mobile simple material. You can change it to advanced. You change this to PIDI shaders, water shaders. I've got it on mobile water. You can change to advanced, and that will give you a bit of foam. You can see this one's translucent a bit now. You have to fiddle with that and see how you want it to sort of go. You can adjust the colour down, a bit darker on your reflection. Just a surface, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, that's something you can sort of play with and get to how you'd like it to look. The big difference between simple and advanced is the translucency or transparency. I'll stick with simple for now. That one's got some ripples on the surface and stuff on the simple. It looks okay. The colour could probably do with being a bit darker, to be fair. Just tune that down just a touch. That's a reflection. The bottom colour maybe. No, bottom colour's good. I'll go with that for now. Anyway, so yeah, so you've now got reflective in the scene. Now you'll see on the prefab, it's got some scripts. Water on off V2 script, which means that you can turn the reflections on and off using the R key. As part of the prefab, you see we've also got a lake normal as a child. Mesh renderer's off, and it's got this water swap prefab. So if in play mode, I'll just demonstrate that. I don't think it works in. No. I'll just go into play mode. You can see how that works. Let's bring the main camera here. And so we have our, let's go back to our prefabs. You can see we've got our mesh, this is on our main reflective lake. We've got our mesh renderer on. And our reflections renderer is on. And also on this we've also got the caster, which is casting a reflection from its own renderer. Press R. You can see the caster stays on, the renderer turns off, the mesh renderer for this turns off, and on our child normal lake that comes with it, that turns on the mesh renderer. You can see the performance. You can see from like the try count and the batches how the performance changes. So even on this small thing, you can see it's making quite a difference. So yeah, so that's an own renderer lake. It's as simple as that. to sort of install one of those. But as you can see, ignore that flashy square. That's the scene sort of thing. You can turn that off if you want under scene view display. Yeah, so that's an own renderer lake. So we had another one over here. Now you could do the same thing again, or you could on this one make it a single renderer. So in this case, we want to use a single renderer to cover these two lakes. Even though the Y height is slightly different, I think we'll probably get away with it. So much the same again on this lake here. We'll turn off our current water and we'll drag in the single renderer prefab. So let's just scale this up. I haven't finished sculpting all these lakes and stuff as yet, so yeah, so a single render run, you'll see it doesn't have its own reflection renderer, just a caster. Now it's currently set to from this single reflection renderer. But what we actually wanted to do is cast from, let's just close this back down, our own renderer over this side. So all it is a matter of clicking on here and then we'll drag our prefab own renderer, which has got a reflection renderer on it, drag that into here. And that is now taking its reflection from the renderer that's doing this lake. And you'll see it's also doing that lake. You can see how, with it being slightly out, how the reflections don't quite marry up. Yeah, we just about get away with it. But sometimes, and you can see the height difference in those two. This one's at 28.96 on the Y. It's 28.47, which is only half a meter difference, and it's still not quite perfect, but it should be good enough. So yeah, so now you've got a scene with two lakes being reflected with only one renderer. However, if we were to try and do that on this lake down here, let's turn this water off. Oops. It's a bit of the lake. That's something else coming through the bottom there. Don't worry about that. That's the river. Let's put a single renderer in here. Lift her up. That's fine. And then if we drag our own renderer into this one, you can see we're not getting quite the reflections. If I just put a tree, there. See how we're not getting it? We're not getting the reflection of that tree because the render is wrong. So in this case, we would then have to go for another delete single render, another own renderer on this one. So if that's seeing you this way. And you can see now we put its own render on it, we do get the reflection of our tree in the lake. So yeah, so that's how single renderer and own renderers work. And it's pretty much as simple as that, to be honest. That's how you add it. Now, the more advanced side of things is obviously performance-wise, when we have too many renderers in a scene. So I'll get over here and I will put all of this stuff in view. So where's our main camera? So I go to play mode. Bear in mind this is a very much an unfinished scene. So we've got our reflective lakes, and you can see we're up at 7.9 million tries already, which is quite a high try count for a scene. Of course, these have all got reflective water up there, on-off toggle on. If we press R, you can see it's adding 3 million tries to the scene having reflective water on. I'll turn that back on, which is quite significant. If we turn off, that's the second one, if we turn this one off, you see ties drop off quite a bit because we're now only running one render in the scene. If we turn this one off, I'll turn that back on. We're now running two renders in the scene. If I turn this single renderer off here, it doesn't make any difference because the renderer is on this lake and it's still running. So it's got no cost for having a second lake on the same renderer. What we have got as part of the debug tools as part of it, if you go into the console, if you click in the scene and press space, you'll see it'll tell you which renderers are on. So we've got our two own renderers showing. So that's quite handy. So when you're trying to work out how many renderers you've got showing, if you go into there and press space, it will show you. So in an ideal world, what we would like to do here is only have one of these renderers on at a time, just to try and get that try count down a bit. So as part of the scripts on the own renderer, go back to the inspector, you'll see we have this set of scripts here. Now the water on off 2 is what I was telling you about, the R button turning the renderers on and off. You have render to cull, is visible new, distance cull and distance fixed, which you'll see is turned off. I press R, you'll see distance fixed actually turns on. That's just part of the way it works. But the one you can sort of alter and change is the distance cull script. And that's basically however far away from the camera you are, anything beyond that distance, it will turn off the reflection renderer. So as part of the package again, we've got a ruler. So if you drag the main camera into A, and then you don't care about the single renderer because that's casting off of this one. So we'll put this own renderer in. Which one do I put in there? And this one. You can see this one, object B, which is this renderer here, is 75 meters away, and C, which is this one, is 338 away. The distance cull script on renderer 1 here currently is set at 500, so therefore it's rendering. We drop this to 300. And then we go back into our console, so that, and now press space. You can see it's no longer rendering, and our try count has dropped. So even though you can't really see the difference from here, it's improved performance. So I'll just do that again. If I knock that back up to 500, you can see our try count jumps. You can see it does change slightly in colorization, which you can tweak by adjusting your materials. But yeah, so you want to try and get this distance cull script you can adjust to suit your course. So it might be, if I just go in here and have a little move around, you can see it's already how slow it is and bogged down by the try count. See, from around this sort of distance, we wouldn't necessarily need it. So if we go into a console, into our ruler rather, it's at 247. So you could knock it down even sort of, maybe knock it down a bit lower even from this view. Down to 250. So 240. Seeing it's culled it right down. That's now no longer reflective. But as we move forward, see it's now, you can see a slight change. See it clicking. So you'll notice this one now is going off because it's now behind us. It's no longer visible. So we clear this down here, go into space. The first one is no longer visible because it's behind us. So that one's turned off and this one's turned on. So again, we've only still got one render in the scene showing. So that's how the distance cull script works. And the best thing to do is go around and you'll have to work this all out at the end. How's the best way to do it from all your views as you fly around the course. You'll get to sort of, I didn't set the camera up properly. Oh dear. On the wonk. So you could be coming down this hole. And if we get to this sort of area, see we've got them both visible again. So if we go to our ruler now, between here and is 91, so we can see it and we want to see it, but this one's 349, so we can knock down the distance cull on our A1 down to 300 and see our performance improves. And we go through and that one will turn off shortly. So when you get to here, we now go back into our console, our space. They're both still visible at the moment, so we'll have a little bit of a bog down here, and there's nothing you can do about it because, well, I suppose you can knock that one down a bit lower, but it'll depend what the view you need on the other holes. But yeah, so that's how they sort of work with your single renderer. What you have got is one more option, which I don't know if I can show you on this course, if I come out of play mode, is say all of your lakes were at the same level and you were only ever going to have one renderer in the scene. What you could do is, let's just remove that. And we'll remove that. And we'll drag us another single renderer in here. Let's do this quickly. It doesn't have to be great. It's for demo purposes. Something like that. So you've now basically got two lakes in here, which are single renderers. As you can see at the moment, they've got no reflection renderers within it. You have got this single reflection renderer prefab. You drag that into the scene. What this does is this goes at 0, 0, 0 in the course, and it takes a picture of the entire course. But you can then use it to feed. There's no culling on it because there's no need to have culling on it or anything like that because you'll only ever have one renderer in the scene. And then all you need to then do is drag that. I should have called that something else. And all your single renders, this is how they are set by default. You'll then need to drag, I think it's done set up by the, drag that into that one. Drag that into that one. And you'll see that one reflection renderer is now feeding both these lakes. But you can see what I mean by when the height's set wrong, how you get weird reflections. So what you then need to do is set this single reflection renderer to the height you want it to be at. And as I say, you can only have one. I set it to 25, it's no good. It's at 28.69, so Set it to 28. It's pretty close. 28.5. There you go. That's set at 28.5, and you'll get that one and that one there. So that's not far. You could probably go up a little bit higher. 8.7, something like that. And you'll see, and then you can have one renderer running the whole scene. Don't have to worry about setting up culls or anything like that, but this can only be done if all your lakes are at round about that Y value. If I tried to do it on this one like I did before, it'll be much the same as when we had it when we were trying to run it off that own renderer. Oops. Put that in there. See, it won't work. Our reflection just will not come through right because it's too high. So we're getting no reflections whatsoever because the renderer is at this height. So yeah, so I hope that makes sense. That's PIDI. It's it can take a bit of setting up. Some of the effects you can get are really quite nice. It is nice to have sort of reflective surfaces. More so, it depends on the course whether you think it's worth it. But when you start getting trees and lakes, and yeah, you can material-wise you can tweak about to your heart's content, and it'll reflect a bit of your skybox and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I hope that's useful. I don't think there's anything else to show you in amongst it. I'll just have a quick look through. The scripting is all done for you, so you don't really need to worry about that. You can rename these, so whatever you like, so you can just change that to Lake 2. The name itself doesn't make any difference. That wasn't a render, was it? Sometimes it's easier if you call them all things like that, so they're all together. So you can just call this render. Sometimes that's easy, so then when your hierarchy, they're all nicely together. One more thing on that one, you'll see it's a slightly different script. So this is the reflection renderer on-off script. If you remember on the own one, it was wherever it is, the water on-off V2 and stuff like that. You don't have any of that when you're running a single renderer scene. And that works much the same. So you'll see if I go into play mode again, can't remember where I put camera. See, these are nicely reflective. We're only running one renderer, so the tries are down at that 6 million mark, which is still high. Press R, and you see it turns more off. Weirdly, it hasn't put normal water on there. Yeah, because I didn't change. I didn't put the normal on because I didn't change on the water swap. You need to make sure that these are set right. So, what is on that one? Yeah, because I hadn't swapped on the water swap V2 script on your normal water. You've got to make sure that it's your reflection renderer in the scene that's doing it. So Lake 2, you'll see Lake 2's off. Need to drag in our lake renderer. You'll see our normal water, so that will work. Reflective, non-reflective, and Lake 3. So yeah, it all depends on how you set up your scene. In an ideal world, I would suggest you try and get all your water on one height. But realistically, once you start getting hills and stuff in a course, it's not going to work out. Try and then put as many as you can on one renderer. So where your lakes are similar heights, try and use those off of an own renderer and then share it. And then for every multiple renderer you have, you then have to start getting into setting up your cull distances and things like that to try and keep performance as best as you can. It's slightly an advanced topic. It's sort of once you've got your scene all fully done to see what you can do. Yeah, but obviously you probably will need to tweak materials and coloration and stuff like that, which by the time you got to this point, hopefully you're quite sort of useful at. Any questions, always reach out and I'll try my best to help you out. Best of luck.